I guess it should come as no surprise that I'm late again. And, I know how important it is to get the tutor to the train station. It's maybe one of my favorite parts is tooting on the way to, during the train station shows. But I'm late again. And today we're going to talk about some mistakes. A big mistake, like one that I made, was thinking that the 7:05 would get me to the train station the way that the 6:45 would. Kayl's not going to be happy, but I see you guys in the chat, and I'm pretty excited to hang out with everybody. Let's head on over to the train station.
So, Ken's late, as per usual. Actually, that's a lie. He probably said something about me being late most of the time, which is absolutely true. But regardless, hopefully he gets here with his tutor soon. And I do mean the whistle. I'm excited to talk to you guys tonight because we have some great topics. And hopefully we're going to go over some things that are...
Sorry, I am late. But guess what? I brought. These guys, don't let her know that what happened. But, sometimes the trains get in train traffic jams. So... whatever.
Train traffic jams.
Something like that. I wasn't really listening. They said there was a reason why we weren't here yet. But I'm excited to be here now. So we have some pretty exciting stuff to talk about tonight. I like these kinds of streams because we can talk about some stuff that these guys can take home. Well, I guess they're at home. Literally start doing right away. That's what a big focus of our live streams are, so that you guys can jump right into whatever you're working on, so that you can take these skills, these little bits and pieces that we talk about,
let's just see if people are in. I find it very strange that there's not a lot of comments happening. Let's
We're
just
good.
Make sure we are.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think we're good. There's tons. You just don't see them here.
I see.
Yeah,
I was like, that is really weird. Normally they're like going crazy by now.
Yeah, and that is the case.
Okay.
That is in fact the case.
Yes, it is. Hi, everybody.
So
now I feel more like the norm.
Yes, yeah. Nothing's broken. We are going to talk today about 5 common dog training mistakes, and this is the kind of stuff, with the amount of dogs that we see in a week. There's some really common little things that people do, little mistakes that people make, and I'll tell you that when they adjust some of these, when you deal with some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight, it's going to change your training entirely. We're also going to talk a little bit about like some of the mistakes that I made as a dog owner before I ever went to McCann's. And it's these little tweaks, the little tweaks, that saying, little tweaks lead to big peaks. And when you're talking about big peaks in your dog training.
Big peaks.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. It makes it more fun. More importantly, it makes more sense to your dog. So with no further ado, let's jump into the show. We're going to talk today about the 5 most common dog training mistakes and how you can fix them. I'm Ken Steepe.
I'm Kayl McCann.
Welcome back to McCann Dogs.
I was thinking about something as you were talking, and often when we're giving you guys explanations, we often say to you, dog training generally isn't like a quick fix thing. Like there's work that you have to do, you got to put the work in. But tonight, actually, there are things that we're going to talk to you about that actually could be changes that you literally could make today that will make a difference tomorrow.
Right.
Sounds like a great saying.
Yeah, I know. And it's kind of...
the changes you make today, or whatever I just said. What I said a second ago sounded much greater than I'm
much more fluid.
I'm not going to try not to repeat it.
I want to get this out of the way because I know a lot of people are like, hey, why hasn't Ken tooted yet? But here's one for all of you guys that asked for me to toot. I don't think anyone asked yet. But I'm sure you will
like to do it.
Here in the chat. I do like to toot. Now, I see lots of familiar names. I see some people that, we see every week or quite often in the train station. But I'd really like to know if anybody here is new, if this is your first time catching us live. We do try to shape some of our content and the things we talk about a little bit on, the skill levels or the expectations or the questions of you. And, we like our live streams because it's our opportunity to answer your questions, to have a conversation with you. It's also a great opportunity for you guys to pick our brains and, learn a little bit about, how to have a better relationship with your dog and have a dog who loves to listen. And that is definitely our goal. So drop new if you're brand new here. Another thing that I really like to do, I see Mark mentioned it, big toot toot. Another thing that I often like to do is I recently launched a satellite. It took a lot of math, but it's up there. And I use that satellite to check in with a very important person. You're going to see him in the chat. It's Dan, lots of links, Luton. You guys might see him. Dan, the moderator man. He's got a little blue wrench beside his name. And so I often will receive the signal. I don't even know how satellites work. Receive the signal, send the signal out.
You're doing great.
Yeah, however satellites work. I'm going to get a picture from Dan's, where he is, at his moderation station. Let's see what Dan is up to. Let's go up to the McCann satellite. Okay, there he is. Oh my God. Something is different about Dan. I'm not sure what it is.
I love that
something
it's like sideways
is
too.
Different. What was different there? Something.
It was hard to tell.
Can't quite put my finger on it. Something had changed. I know that Dan may or may not have gotten a new haircut today. Yeah.
Can you scroll down just a second? I just saw a message to me from one of my students.
Okay.
Donna, Kayl, Macy's biting has gotten so much better. Thank you for your private lesson Zoom and chats. Yay, Donna! I am so happy to hear that.
Yeah.
That's because you were a rock star in the lesson, I think.
That helps.
Yeah.
That
I'm
helps.
so happy to hear that. That's great.
Something else we like to do, because I see tons of you guys in here, and I know some people that have been to the train station before because they already know. They sort of like proceed. I see Cindy's done this. You know what's coming up, and it's one of my favorite parts. So I really want to know where you're joining us from. We love to do the roll call. We love to know where you guys are joining us from. And I say this every show because I enjoy it so much, but we see people from all over the world. And sometimes I need to I'm not great at geography, but sometimes I have to research where these places are. But it's so interesting to me. We have online students from all over the world.
Yes.
I can't remember how many countries, 31 countries or something?
I think we're more than 31 countries
41
now.
countries, something like that.
Yeah.
But we have people representing from all over the world. So it's really fun for us to have an opportunity to see where you guys are joining us from. And I know there's some different dog training challenges in different parts of the world, I know for sure. But I also like to take a bit of a romper room moment and look through my little looking glass. And I see Team Denim from Rhinebeck, New York, Maine, Arkansas, PA, Ottawa, not too far away, Karina. Southern California, Jacqueline joining us again. Welcome back to the train station. Trevon says Texas. Kathy, I missed it. Oh no, it moved. Massachusetts, St. Catharines, Houston, Dubois, PA.
Boring, London, Ontario. That's not boring, Catherine.
No, Maryland.
You're close to
us. Vicky's from Wake Forest. I see Boston, Northwest Indiana, Texas, UK. Thanks for hanging out late with us, Emily. I know it's late for you right now. I see CT, Oklahoma, Florida, Fullerton, California, Rye Brook, New York, 20 miles north of NYC. Lions Head, Ontario, Battered, Pensacola, Florida. Somebody just said they're just down the road. I missed it. The Guelph, Australia,
Nice.
France, Mexico, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Paris. Thanks for joining us from Paris, Yoni. Leamington, that's also pretty close. Colorado. London, England, and the list goes on.
Wow.
And I see Cynthia's joining us from Albuquerque. Thanks for joining us from Albuquerque.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Very cool. Now, let's dive right into things. Now, you guys will see Dan the Man's going to drop some information in the chat. You'll also see, I think Instructor Lexi is one of our moderators here on the show tonight.
Lexi Lou.
Yeah. So you'll see her in there, and she's able to give advice or links or whatever you need. But let's talk about some of the really important, some of the most common mistakes. Let's talk about the first one, and this is one I know I made as I first started dog training, because I really didn't understand. I guess I didn't understand how valuable each reward was. I know you sometimes talk about using your yes as a snapshot in time. Well, food can do a similar thing. Just simply feeding your dog, when you do it, why you do it, which is most important. Let's talk a little bit about people when they're feeding everything, how they can actually create some confusion for their dog.
Yeah, I feel like there's like two sort of like strains of people. There's people who like really just want to use treats for everything, and then there's people who are afraid to use food because they don't want to become dependent on food and they don't want to have to use food for everything. And sometimes like one side of the story can quickly turn into the other if they don't really know how to use food correctly. Yeah. And that's something that we teach in our dog training program. We do teach things with food, but we also teach people how to wean off of the food so that it becomes more of a reward and the dog still listens. But what we find tends to happen is when the dog learns to work for food and things go well, we have a lot of humans that then try to use the food for every single thing. And that actually can become a little bit confusing in terms of the dogs becoming dependent on it. And then also too, The dogs then sometimes don't know like what you kind of don't like, what you kind of like a little bit more, and what you love, because we're just feeding every single thing.
Yeah.
So we're going to definitely get more into expectation as the stream goes on today. But that's something that you can really think about in your training is, you know, if your dog does something fairly well, and maybe they've done it 100 times or whatever, you don't have to feed every single thing that your dog does. You want to make sure that you're really clear about, you know, what you're rewarding and how you're rewarding it. And then most specifically, we always talk about this on every single live stream, and that is timing in which you deliver the food as well, because you can give your dog, you know, 100 treats if you want to, but if they don't know within that, you know, time span what the actual food is for, that food doesn't count. It doesn't mean anything.
Right. Yeah.
So being able to actually pinpoint when your dog is correct and then being able to reinforce properly, it can make a huge difference, so that that one treat actually does more than showering them in a whole bunch of rewards.
Yeah, I think there might be some confusion that people may have, especially if you're working with your puppy right now and you've watched some of our videos that talk about, you know, we use food right on the dog's nose. And at the very beginning, you're going to use food to your advantage because it's a resource that your dog immediately understands. It's something of value. But very quickly in their training, you're not food on the nose all of the time. And it's not like, you know, when my dog doesn't need a food lure to sit, that they don't need a food lure to walk. You know, there's going to be a little bit of, it's going to be a little bit dynamic, but it does mean that you need to up the challenge a little bit for your dog. And timing, Kayl will talk a little bit about timing and why people struggle. And let me know in the chat. We see this so often. People say, you know, my dog only comes when I have food, or my dog will only sit if I'm holding a treat. He only responds to their name if I have a toy. It's a really common challenge, and we're going to show you tonight how you can eliminate that, the reason that it's happening, because it's real. It's a timing issue, and how you can start to give your dog better information so that they're responding to what you're saying. All of our training is working toward your dog responding to that first command every single time, especially important when it comes to something like your come command, your recall command. But those words don't mean anything if you have to have a treat in your hand. They're just so much less valuable. Because here's an example. Let's say you're out for a walk at the park and your dog's running the other way chasing a deer, and you say, come. What do they think? You know, they're not going to turn around and see that food in your hand. So they need to respond to the word. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we can fix that timing issue for you guys tonight.
Oh my God, they're hilarious in the thing already. They're using quotes with the Kayl voice.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. For those of you who are not part of our online program, I often razz the students in our online programs about being more animated and using their voice so that their food isn't so dependent. And often when I'm talking and teaching, a lot of the dogs or the puppies that can hear me get very motivated and attentive because of my high squeaky voice, and we often joke about people being a bit more animated with their voice because you can get your dog to do all kinds of things if you sound like you're having a good time.
Yeah. Carol Nicholson mentions, my dog comes when she thinks I have food. That's exactly what we're talking about, and this is a common mistake. It's a timing issue, and we don't want you to be dependent on that food. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think sometimes what happens is when we train something, or maybe you think your dog understands something, or maybe even more commonly, you put your dog in a scenario like setting them out in the backyard, for example, and you call them to come inside, and you call them and your dog takes one look at you and says, I don't really feel like listening. And the average person typically will say, come again, and they'll say, come third time. The dog's not listening, and so they'll pull food out or they'll shake a cookie bag, and that dog now has you so well trained to basically just wait till you bring out the goods before listening that those dogs then become dependent on food, because they learn that if they ignore you long enough that you're going to pull out something that's going to motivate them to come towards you. So it is really important that we're getting the steps of the use of the food and the weaning off of the food in the right way, so that you have a dog that is happy to come towards you, and not until they're actually like committed to being with you do they then worry about whether you have food to reward them, or a toy, or maybe even just affection for some dogs. The food isn't the be all end all, but it certainly can turn into a pretty big crutch if people are just sort of resorting back to being like, oh, they're not listening. Okay, here's a treat.
Right.
And then the
that's
dog's
so
like,
important.
ha, 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 I have you wrapped around my finger.
Oh, it's so true, because who's training who at that point?
Yeah.
Your dog is training you that if I wait long enough, this guy or girl's they're going to pull out food.
Yeah.
So why don't I just wait? So we need to be really aware of that.
Do you want me to do these train station-y things, or do you want to come back to it?
I think these guys want to head over to the train
I
station.
don't remember what these all say. So when I'm out there, can you give me a little
Yeah,
prompt?
for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Kayl and I scrambled together a lesson plan for you guys tonight.
We always try to think of like what we can do in our little demonstration area just to make it a little bit more exciting.
The train station.
Sorry, the train station.
Absolutely. So I see lots of people talking. A great question here. Someone asked, is it too late? There it is. Is it too late to train a 2-year-old dog? Let me tell you a little story about this guy.
Tell them in the meantime that they need to pick between Slam, Bee, and Funky, because all 3 dogs are staring at me, and I don't know who to use as my dog.
If anybody's a train station regular, you know who the dogs are. Slam, our choices are Slam, Bee, or Funky.
Yeah.
So let us know here in the chat. Question from Ko Tacombe, and we've got a super chat. We'll answer that in just a second from Karen. My first house dog, pet dog, was 2 years old when my vet insisted that I go to McCann Dogs for training. So 2 years old, we get dogs in anywhere from like 16 weeks, like 10 weeks, all the way up to like 10 years old. So it's never too late. You are going to have a bit of a challenge with some of the bad habits that they've already learned, which is what I had as well. But it's never too late. And with that said, are you ready?
Slam seems to win by a long shot.
Oh, wow.
I
Yeah,
think
quite a
Bee
lot.
needs more screen time because there's not a lot of bees here.
No, you're right.
If these were agility people, they would all say Bee.
Alita said, yeah, Bee line.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, you Sammy.
Okay, well, I guess
The first one.
it's time to head on over, guys, to the train station. Just love doing that.
Hey, come here. You need a leash. Hi. We need some lights here, my dear. Okay, guys. I need to talk to you a little bit about how sometimes the food can become a bit of a crutch, or it can also cause a little bit of confusion with the dogs. My dear, what do you think about throwing Funky in a different location? Come here, Sam. So one of the things that that you want to be careful about is, if you're training a particular exercise, and, I'll use the sit stay as an example just because I don't need a lot of space. It's sort of one common one that most people know. If your dog's in a sit stay and you go to leave, there's lots of times when we come back and we use the food that as we get close, we'll often hold the food in a way that the dog gets up. And then what happens is we have a lot of people that will then feed the dog. So he sat back down, and then people will feed in that circumstance. And this can become a pretty big issue, because if we repeat this, and again, sit, good boy. Dogs learn within repetition. So every time I come out and I start to reach for food and he pops out of position, and then I ask him to sit and then reward him again, what's going to start to happen is I'm now conditioning Slam that when I'm at a distance, he should get up and move towards me for a treat. And we actually had somebody ask the other day in one of our classes that they were trying to train their dog to go and lie down on a bed. And the dog would lie on the bed, do a great job, but then we'd get up and they would run over to the person. The person would tell them to get back on the bed, and then they would reward. So I'm going to give you another example of what happened. So if I tell Slam to sit and stay, and I'm at a distance, and he gets up, okay, buddy, he gets up at a position, and I ask him to go back, and then I tell him sit, stay, and I give him a treat, okay? I go at a distance, and then, okay, buddy, he comes out of position, I send him back, sit, stay. What happens is dogs start to learn a chain behavior. So what's happening because of the timing is Slam thinks that the reward is for the combination of getting up, going back, and then getting a reward. And so what was happening with this student and this puppy is the puppy was so good about going to the bed, but the puppy wouldn't stay on the bed. The puppy would go on the bed, run to her, go back on the bed, run to her, go back on the bed. And it was because the puppy thought that action is what the person wanted to reward for because of the sequence of behaviors that was happening. So what should you do differently if you want your dog to maintain position? This has to do with your timing. So if I tell Slam to stay and I move away, first off, my goal is to come back and reward before he moves away from that position and then back. So when I'm at a distance, he's holding that position. So again, I'm coming back before he has a chance to move. So in the beginning, I would only move away for a couple seconds at a time until I was building more duration. Once you get to the point where you can build a bit more duration, your dog may make a mistake, and that's okay. We just have to work through it properly. So if he does break position, what I want to do is I'm going to take him back, but instead of giving him a treat, I might just give him a little reminder. I might lift up on his collar and tell him sit, but I'm not going to give him a treat, because if I reward him now, this is where he believes that the treat is for coming back. So instead of rewarding, I'm going to tell him stay. I'm going to step away for just a moment. Yes, good boy. And then I'm going to come back and reward. So again, he believes, the reward is for staying in position. It's not for getting up and then going back. So hopefully that wasn't too complicated to understand, but that's a really common mistake that we see people make in their training, and that's why they only get like half of the behavior trained, and then they don't get longevity or reliability in the training, and that's what we're really looking for. Stays are not helpful if your dog stays for 2 seconds and then they're off doing their own thing. Stay means stay there until I tell you that you can move, and we want to eventually work on longevity, and the timing of the reward is a crucial part of them understanding it. What was the second one, or did I kill a couple birds with
yeah, we pull up food when the dog is listening. We command and show food at the same time.
Good one. Okay. So another thing that people will often do with a mistake with their training is when they go to teach their dog something new, they often will show the dog the food first, and then they'll give the command. And a really common place, actually I'm going to use an example that I've not really used before. Okay. What a lot of people will do, so in our dog training, one of the exercises that we teach in our life skills program, which is one of our online training classes, and we'll talk to you a little bit more about that in a few minutes, is we teach the dog a drop it or a leave it command. So when the dog has something in their mouth, whether it's a toy or something that's playful, or if it's something disgusting like a frog or whatever, we want the dog to drop that item when we ask them to. But a common mistake that people make with food is they often will pull the treats out before giving the command. And what starts to happen is the dog's got that item in their mouth, the handler says drop it or out, and the dog keeps it in their mouth and basically looks to say, you're going to trade me for something? Then I'm going to think about dropping. It's like if I ask Ken to wash the dishes, for example. He would be really quick to wash the dishes if I was getting a cupcake ready to give to him. He would wash those dishes pretty quickly. But if I said no cupcake and I said wash the dishes, he'd be like, I don't really know about that. Right, hon? Is that the truth?
I love cupcakes.
Okay, so let me show you the wrong way and let me show you the right way. So if Slammy's tugging on this toy, okay, good boy. I'm letting him tug, If I get the food out and I show him that I have the food and then I tell him out or drop it, whatever command you want to use, we say out. When I say out and I'm showing the food at the same time, good boy, yes. He did a great job. He let go, but because the food was so prominent first, he may start to depend on that. So I'm going to actually show you the correct timing that we suggest that you do that leads to being able to not have to have the food later on down the road once we repeat. So I'm going to let him grab the toy again. Okay, buddy, get it. Okay, I'm going to let him have a little tug, tug, tug. I'm going to get my food ready, but I'm just going to kind of hide it away. So it's back here. I'm not going to make a big deal. I'm going to say O-U-T, and then I'm going to show him the food. Out, then show. Yes, good boy. So it's command first, then I show him the food, and then we can release from there. So if you think about it, if he hears the command, then he's shown the food. Here's the command, then he's shown the food. And that's the order. What starts to happen with these smart dogs that have great information from their handlers is when I say out, he's now going to anticipate the reward, which means he's going to drop it. So, okay, buddy. So if I say get it and tug, 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 I can now say out. Yeah, see? He's out and he's already looking at me to say, okay, where's my reward? I didn't have to use the food. Now I'm going to feed him because that was really fast. Yes, good boy. But in order to create this response, I have to use food in the proper order so that I can train him to do it well. And then on top of that, I don't need to use the food. So eventually, okay, get it. I can just tug with them and then I can tell him out. Yes, get it. Good boy. And I can just control him with my voice. Good, out. Yes, get it. Good boy. And then before you know it, I just can have him drop things on command with with no problem whatsoever. Out. Yay, you're so smart. Good boy. Is that good, hon?
Yep, it's great.
Okay. Good boy, come here. You're so smart. Yes.
Now, we definitely need to say a huge thank you to some of our super chatters. We've got great questions here as well, Kayl. Mary H., just the sweetest. Every single week, she comes in, drops a super sticker. Thank you very much, Mary. Thanks for the super sticker.
Mary, you're the best.
Yeah. We've got a couple questions, too. Karen Aruda, $4.99 super chat. She asks, my 5-month-old boxer puppy doesn't care for treats in distracting environments. This is
common.
Yeah, really common. Let's chat about that for a second.
Yeah, so there's a couple obvious things that we would say. And number one, what kind of treats are you using? Because often we have a lot of people that will say, oh, my dog's not really that interested in treats. And then when I look at the kind of treats that they're using, they're what we would sort of determine as being very low value food. Things like kibble, Cheerios, carrots, just dry type of kibble. That for a lot of dogs, those types of treats aren't really that exciting. Often if you ramp up your treat game, you're going to get a little bit more attention from the dog because you're having something that's a bit higher value. Sometimes though, that's not the be all end all. I mean, That's a great thing to do, but sometimes that's not enough. Another thing to consider is how valuable does your dog feel food is just in general life? So we find sometimes people do a lot of free feeding, which means the dog can kind of go and eat the food on their own time at their own pace. And that can really diminish the value of food and can make it much harder to train them with food. So we highly suggest that you meal feed your dog, which means they get a breakfast and they get a dinner and they just get a few minutes to eat. Our dogs probably polish their bowls off in 30 seconds. And that's it. And that keeps the food more valuable. When I have a young dog that I'm doing a lot of training with, I will often use their actual meals in the house when there's not a lot of distractions as their training food. So I know they're already hungry, they want the food from me, and I can take that opportunity to get some really engaging focus from my dog when I'm doing some training. And then the other thing too is that sometimes people overface the dogs too much with too many distractions, too exciting distractions too quickly. So it could be that maybe your dog needs to have a stronger understanding of their job and their expectation first before switching over to adding a lot of distractions. So often we like to proof things. Actually, we're going to get into that.
Yeah, we'll talk a little
proof
bit more
things
about
and
that.
then add distractions.
Let's save that. But you need a strong foundation, a solid history of reward in the position you want, so that you can work your way. Yeah, McCanndogs.links/merch. Or exclamation point merch in the chat while we're on the live
They make
stream.
things taste so delicious.
So Karen, we're gonna dive even deeper to your question in a little bit.
Definitely.
Vicky W, thank you for the $20 super chat. Vicky asks,
Thank you.
how do I get my female hound to stop humping?
Ah.
Again, not that
I've had an
things.
awkwardly large amount of humping questions this week.
Yeah?
Is that weird?
I don't know. Maybe it's the time of year or something.
Is it like a humpy time of year?
Maybe it's like Doggy Valentine's or something.
Maybe.
I don't even know what's going on.
Well, there's been a lot of humping questions this week for whatever reason. But you know what? I have humping answers. So there you go.
That's the weirdest thing that has ever been said here in the train station.
Vicky, look what you've started.
And I've said a lot of weird things.
And unfortunately for Vicky, she's like, this isn't funny. I'm actually irritated by the fact that my dog is humping.
Yeah, no, we can appreciate that.
Yeah. So it depends what the dog is humping, to be perfectly honest. If the dog is just, humping their blankets and things like that, we typically don't get too worried about that. It is a bit of a dominance behavior, and it's not that big of a deal if it's something that's harmless. Where it is a big deal is if it's being directed towards, humans and people in your house, or even, sometimes other dogs as well, because it can lead to some, issues depending on the scenario.
And several more dogs.
And in that case, yes.
Yeah.
So what I would really recommend that you do, Vicky, is have a command that you use. We would say something like knock it off or that's enough. And then make sure you have your dog on a leash so that you can interrupt her behavior.
Yeah.
What I would suggest that you do is take the leash, lift up, and just get her to sit. Give her a different job to do and stop her from doing that right away. If she goes right back to what she's doing, you're going to just keep repeating yourself until your dog sort of says, okay, I'm not getting anywhere. And when she chooses to sit and be calm, then you need to reward her for that behavior. So humping is a pretty self-rewarding behavior. Am I right? And so it's very important that this is taking a very weird turn.
Just the fact that you nudged me. That was weird.
It'd be weird if I nudged somebody else.
Yeah, I know, that's true.
So it's very important that you follow through and interrupt it very quickly because if you don't, it's going to keep continuing. The other thing that you need to do is watch her closely because it's pretty normal for dogs to give you sort of a sign that they're about to do an unwanted behavior. It could be humping, it could be barking, whatever. And when you see her sort of look like she's about to do it, sit, that's enough. Stop her right away. It's much easier to diminish the behavior before it's actually in full force than it is when she's actually, committed to doing whatever she's doing. So hopefully, even though that was sort of a jokey situation, it is an irritating behavior for sure. Hopefully a couple of those tricks will help you out.
Alexandro, dropping the $5 super chat.
Thank you
for that. Now, what's interesting and well-timed about Alexandros' question is that we're going to talk about management in just a minute here. And Alexandros asks, how can I prevent biting and barking at a 12-week-old Bernuffi pup? So let's talk a little bit about management. We'll sort of be able to apply it to some of the things that he's dealing with. And I think it's if we can just sort of get it in flow here. I don't want to miss out on some of the important stuff that we've got here. But one of the most common dog training mistakes that people make is poor management. Not planning for their dog to make mistakes or not knowing that their dog is likely to make a mistake. So they give their dog too many opportunities to make these bad choices. Let's talk a little bit about, and we've mentioned it a couple of times here, and I actually saw a funny little comment in the thing saying, you are a McCann Dogs fan if you quickly respond with the words house line.
Yes.
Because it's such a powerful training tool. It can make such a difference. And for Alexandros' situation, without question, that Bernuffi pup needs to be wearing a house line so that you have a little bit more control. But let's talk a little bit about how we can use house line, leash, and long lines when they're appropriate.
Yeah, so having a house line on your dog, which is essentially a leash, and we cut the handle off so it doesn't get caught in as many things, it is going to help you get control of your puppy in all kinds of scenarios. And specifically, Alexandra, when your puppy is jumping at you or nipping and biting, it allows you to have a handle to immobilize the puppy from there. Often if we don't have any type of leash attached and we're trying to push the puppy away or grab a hold of the puppy, so many puppies view that like you're trying to play with them, and it actually makes the behavior worse rather than better. But when I have a handle on, I can stop the puppy, keep my body up a little bit more upright, and I can follow through with a lot more control. Further to that, having a long line or leash attached to my dog when they're outside as well, when maybe they have a little bit more room to roam around, I also have the ability to follow through and prevent my dog from doing unwanted behaviors like picking up sticks and chewing on them, or barking at the neighbor's dog, or running down the driveway, as a car goes by. I have a little bit more control to be able to make sure that I keep my dog safe. Now, we use the long lines differently than we use a leash. So, we have a small yard sort of off to the side of our side door that will often take our puppies because there's a little bit less distractions, but there's still distractions. And what we tend to do is we have a long line on our dogs that's about 25 feet or so, and I'll either hold the end of it or I'll even let it drag on the floor. So my puppy has a little bit of freedom, but not complete freedom, so that if something goes wrong, I can take the puppy back. This also allows me to not have to walk my puppy on a short leash and let my puppy rehearse pulling and dragging me. So it's a great sort of alternative behavior. But again, these are all different management tools that we use to stop unwanted behaviors from starting in the first place, because we can get on top of it very, very, very quickly. And just to mention, while I'm sort of on the topic, all of these things that we're going over, we talk about in great detail in our Puppy Essentials program. So if you're on line today and you have a puppy that's under 6 months, I would highly suggest checking out our Puppy Essentials program, because a lot of these tips about nipping and biting and pulling on the leash and all of these types of things, we talk talk very intensely about all of these particular things. And the coolest part is we can direct those particular pieces of advice specifically to you and your dog, because unlike this where we kind of don't really get to know you, we basically spend all week with you and we get to know your puppy really well.
Daily contact, weekly calls. Like it's really,
great.
really good for that. Okay, so talking about giving your dog these opportunities to make bad choices, using a crate or a limited space area is also a very, very helpful thing, because, you know, dogs will do what's rewarding. I've said it a million times. If you've watched enough videos, you've definitely heard me say that. But Kayl mentioned, you know, without a long line and your dog starts chasing a car going by, it's self-rewarding for that dog to chase the car. Why on earth would they come back to you? You need to have that emergency brake. Same thing comes with inside the house. One of the biggest mistakes that people make with puppies is they give them way too much freedom way too early.
Yeah.
So they say, you know, how do I stop my dog from chewing on the baseboard? How do I stop my dog from chewing on the table leg?
And we say, how is your puppy near the table leg?
Right, yeah. How did your puppy have an opportunity to get away from you to make that mistake? Because they can. We've heard of some wildly dangerous situations that these puppies can get into, chewing electrical cords or getting into like underneath the sink. You know, you keep all your the cleaners and detergents and stuff in there. So having your puppy or dog in a limited space area, and this isn't just for puppies. Like we brought a new dog into any of the adult dogs that we brought into our household. Initially, without question, they start in a crate.
Yeah.
You know, we show them, we don't let them make mistakes because we don't want to say, hey, don't do that. Don't chew on that. Hey, where do you go? Hey, you ate the couch cushion. You don't want to be doing that.
No.
Yeah, that's not the experience
we want you to say
these dogs
yes.
That's right. That's exactly. So using a crate or a limited space area for that dog is so helpful. It can really, really help you out. Letting your dog rehearse unwanted behaviors. So, I mean, that we've kind of talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I can give you another scenario. So letting your dog rehearse unwanted behaviors is especially dangerous if those behaviors are self-rewarding behaviors. Things like barking at the window when people come by, or going to the bathroom in your house when you're not paying attention to them, or chewing things in your house. These are all really self-rewarding behaviors that nobody needs to be around to tell your dog, you know, good dog, because it's a fun thing for them to do. So if your puppy is being able, or your dog, it doesn't matter the age, is rehearsing these behaviors every day or a couple times a week, it starts to solidify the behavior and it becomes sort of a thing, a habit that you now need to break. And our goal for you is that you learn how to manage and give your dog information correctly in the beginning, so that a lot of these little bumps in the road are really just that. They're not behaviors that linger and stay for a long time. We can give you the tools to get on top of it quickly so that they can come and go, and you know, it's not something that you have to deal with for months and months and months on end, and then you have to manage it from there. So breaking up that unwanted behavior cycle is going to be super, super important, and it just means that you need to be aware of what your dog's doing in a day.
Dan, can you drop a crate training link to like a crate training playlist for Mara? And I see a couple other people are having challenges with their crate. I think that would be helpful. If not, I can grab it in the next break we get. A couple of super chats. Justin Small and Egyptivan, thanks for dropping the super chats. Let's jump into Justin's question. This one is not an uncommon question. We often get asked by our students as well. First of all, thank you both. Well, thank you for hanging out with us here, Justin. Thank you for the super chat. Your channel has helped me with my mini Aussie puppy. What age would you recommend we start teaching walking? Oh, we start teaching and walking. Okay. Teaching starts day one. The day your puppy comes home. We have a few videos on the channel that'll help you get some initial
8 weeks,
steps.
9 weeks, you can start to train your dog to do all kinds of things, and we would highly recommend that.
Yeah.
We usually do a lot of training with our dogs and our puppies before we actually take them for a walk. We train a lot of the walking skills first before we go for a walk. So if I have a young puppy, I'm actually not taking them for a walk around the block and allowing them to rehearse pulling and dragging me. I'm going to be teaching them how to walk at my side and how to learn to be respectful on a leash, all of those things, maybe inside the house or in the driveway where there's not a lot of distractions, so I can teach the puppy how I want them to walk. And then from there, as we get some training and a little bit more experience underneath our belt, I'll then go venture out into the neighborhood or the trails or whatever it might be as the puppy gets a little bit older. It's hard for us to put a particular age on it because every dog is different, and a lot of it has to do with how successful the trainer is. But loosely, typically, we're not doing a lot of walking if our dog's like under 6 months, I would say. But that doesn't mean that we're not exercising, stimulating, and doing walking training. It just means that we're not literally going out into the world to do a lot of walking, which surprises people when we say that.
Yeah, and depending on your breed, you might want to just consult with your vet and find out, puppies are growing. They have like these epiphyseal plates in their long bones, and you want to make sure that your puppy's ready for that sort of like steady state impact. And your vet can give you a little bit of guidance on that. But, it's not necessarily about the age, it's about the level of understanding. Egypt Tiven questions. Older dog, common training. 3-year-old pit bull terrier. That's a cute dog. Heard about the house line, so thank you. But using the house line during training, holding versus drag. What do you think?
That's a good question. So if you're using the house line during training, if you're in the house, you certainly just let the house line drag if you want. You can pick it up to use it from there. If you're going to be working on training any walking exercises, though, I would recommend that you put a leash on and hold the leash in your hand, or any exercises that are going to require you to maneuver the dog at all. I would use an actual leash for that training session. You can hold the leash properly in your hand. We actually use leather leashes.
Could be a bigger dog, too.
We use leather leashes when we're training because they're really nice, on our hands and with the dog as well. But if we're just sort of doing casual training sessions or in the house, typically I'll just have like an old battered leash attached so that I have, something if I need it. More formal training sessions or where I'm going to be a little bit more handsy with the leash, I'm going to use something a bit more sturdy in my hands that I'm going to have better control with. And then outside, same thing. I might actually use a leash if I'm doing more of a formal training session or I need to be maneuvering the dog around a little bit more. And then, of course, if we're just going out for a pee or doing some recall training, I might just have my long line attached. Typically, what Ken and I do is we have a long line that stays just outside our door, and we have a house line that stays inside. So when we take our puppies from inside the house to outside of the house, we just have them learn to sit at the door, and we swap out their lines. And then that way, the dirty line stays outside. It's longer. It's perfect for outdoors. And when they come inside, there's one that's a little bit more appropriate for inside. So there isn't like one thing, you can switch it around. But I think if you're training, especially a bigger dog like a pit bull, having a leash for some of those circumstances, I think you'll find really helpful.
Couple really good questions I want to grab just before we move on to the next point is one from Ann Gray. How do I get, she lives in an apartment, how do I get outside to train to walk in an apartment? Number one, start inside. Maybe then you go to a hallway. Maybe then you go to like a wide open field, or maybe there's like a parking lot that isn't busy during the day. The other question is, where do they go to the bathroom? This is an important question. So you need to find some location that isn't heavily used, depending on the age of your dog. But you also don't have that formal walking expectation. We talked at the top of the show about using a long line for a young dog. There's no expectation. They just can't. We don't allow them to like tug on the pull on the leash and drag us all over the place. But we're not expecting them to walk in at our side. That's the difference you need to get in and start thinking about. So you need to really get into the mindset like, I'm in training mode. I'm going to train this specific skill. My expectation is this. This is the outcome. Otherwise, you don't use that command or language, and the dog can just do whatever they want as long as they do those things inside whatever your set of rules are.
It's essentially the same thing that we would do to teach our puppies to go inside the house to outside of the house. We don't want them to, you just have to go a little bit longer. But when I'm first training that with my puppy, I will have some food with me and I'll lure the puppy down the stairs and, back inside and into a sit. And I'm just teaching and training and helping and building a lot of value for being close to me on a loose leash. I don't have as far to go as to go all the way down an apartment for sure. But the concept is still exactly the same. And it's about teaching the dog what you would rather them do by using a motivator that is something that would be interesting to them. If your puppy's small enough and you need just a break for a second, you can pick the puppy up if you want to not let them rehearse the pulling. But I would just take a little bit of time, practice in your hallway up and down with some food, teaching your puppy to follow you in a loose leash. And most of the puppies actually quite enjoy this training as well because it's very engaging. And then you can build on it from there.
Liberty J, thank you for the $4.99 super chat. We have a 16-year-old Chihuahua mix and a 12-week-old Golden Retriever.
Ooh, that's quite the age span.
Said, learning so much. Thank you very much, Liberty J. We
I
do
bet
appreciate
the
the
12-week-old puppy is as big as the 16-year-old dog, or year-old dog at this point.
Okay, I don't want to. We have so much good stuff that I want to chat with these guys about. Asking too many times. I want you to be really self-aware for a moment. How many times have you asked your dog to sit before? I mean, actually, he knows sit. Sit. No. Wait. Sit. He knows this. Check this out. Sit. 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 Yeah. Sit. Sit. sit, sit, sit. And eventually the dog sits and you think, yeah, see, I told you he knew it. It's so important that we don't repeat ourselves. So we're going to talk a little bit about, how that slows down your training and how it can really impact you negatively when you're just asking too much. So you need to take that.
One of the things that I think surprises people about some of the beginning stages of our training is often when we start something brand new with our dogs, we don't actually even use a command. So we would actually teach the behavior first because dogs actually they're masters at reading body language. They follow body cues and hand signals and motions way, 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 way more naturally and more easily than any type of verbal command. I mean, dogs can learn in any language or with any word, but body language is often the same amongst, everybody. So we teach the behavior first, and once the dog kind of has an understanding, we then add the command to it. And one of the biggest reasons why we do that is we don't want to teach our puppies in the initial stages that they're going to hear a command that we eventually want them to listen to the first time, every time, and then not know what to do. So, for example, like down, this is a really common one. When we have people teaching puppies to down, down is actually something that puppies need to kind of figure out the coordination for. Some puppies are better at it than others, but we often have people have the food and they'll say down, 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 as Ken was sort of saying with the sit, and the poor puppy's going, I hear this command down, but I don't really even know how I'm going into the down. So we do the opposite. We teach the behavior first. We get the dog going down with a lot of fluidity. It's very, very easy. And then we say, hey, this behavior you're so good at? It's called down. And then we add the down command to it from there. And we find that the reliability of the dog being able to listen to the command and then respond within a moment of hearing it is extremely higher. So that's a really good tip for you to know.
Yeah. Super chat. Oh, so are we...
That was only the first thing.
Okay. Yeah. Let's go maybe... do that last couple, and then Grace has got a super chat.
Yeah, actually, the other ones are sort of all under the same umbrella. So, asking too many times, things like calling your dog's name over and over and over again without expecting a response. Can use the sit as an example. That just waters down the command, and it teaches the dog that they don't really need to listen. Also, too, it's important to have follow through. So, if your dog does know how to do a command, and you just keep repeating it, you don't actually follow through with making the dog listen to it, that command is also not going to work as well. A really common thing that I see for this one is the command quiet. So the dog barks, and then the person just says quiet, and 2 seconds later the dog barks and the person says quiet, but there's no follow through. That's like your kid being a brat and you're like, I'm going to ground you, and then you don't, and then dog can't interchange kid and dog very well. The kid does something bad again. If you do that again, I'm going to ground you, and they just warn by saying I'm going to ground you, but they don't actually ground them. It's the same thing with quiet. If I just say quiet and I never actually follow through with correcting the barking in the appropriate way, my dog's not going to learn what it means. So you got to
and that might be something
through.
Like knocking on the crate, or like
it could be super passive.
Redirecting them or getting them doing another job or doing something. Other than barking. But if you're saying quiet, the dog barks. You say quiet, the dog barks. You're not affecting change. You need to get over there and do something.
What you're affecting is teaching them that quiet does not mean anything.
It means less. So you need to do something to change redirect that behavior, get their focus elsewhere, not thinking, because barking is a self-rewarding behavior. Dogs. It feels good. So they're not, they don't mind doing it. So you need to do something to interrupt that cycle. Grace with the $6.99 super chat. Thank you for the super chat, Grace. Hi, I was wondering, I like this question. I was wondering how you determine whether or not to put bedding in your puppy's crate. I'm worried that my puppy will be uncomfortable. Thanks. Great question.
Very common.
So, Grace, we bedding is earned, whether it's a bed or a blanket or whatever. All those things are earned. The first few weeks, the crates these days often have like a very, a simple plastic tray. Plastic crates often are just a simple plastic bottom. So it's not that uncomfortable for your puppy. Obviously, we're going to be very mindful of like the location that the crate is in, and I want you to be moving that crate around with you throughout your house, or get a couple of crates in the common living areas of your home. That's a much easier way to deal with it.
A lot of puppies will just lie like on the bottom of the whelping box when they're puppies.
Right.
They're pretty normal.
Yeah.
Pretty used to it. For
sure. But the way you're going to start introducing your puppy's bedding is if your puppy hasn't had accidents in their crate in a couple of weeks, let's say. I mean, it's it's going to be sort of a sliding scale depending on their success. But you don't want to rush in with blankets and they start having accidents and you think, well, I guess I'm just going to have to wash blankets every day. You can remove that bedding because you want to make it a little bit uncomfortable for them to have accidents in their crate. The other thing you want to be careful of is when you first introduce bedding, make sure it's something like, like a towel or something that you don't mind getting ruined because your puppy might chew it. But if they don't.
Almost all of my puppies have tried to chew bedding when I first introduced it. And I've had a few times where they've had a plastic crate. We've gone through the whole house training thing. House training is under control, but then I'll put a bed in, when the puppy's a little bit older, and it'll be good for a couple days. And then I'll notice that it's been chewed on a little bit. So then I have to take it out. And then I try a few weeks later and they chew a little bit. I have to take it out. And I sort of have to, take it away if they're not ready, because what you don't want them to do is ingest the bedding and get hurt in some way. So sometimes, and every dog is different. We have a little toy poodle. She was able to have bedding fairly early, but then she would used to pee on her bedding, and she would push it off to the side. Yeah. And then the rest of the crate would be all clean, and so we had to take it out because she would pee on it for a little while.
And it's not forever.
No. Anyways, all our dogs have really fluffy beds in their crates now. It's a bit ridiculous, but it's just something that we do gradually based on the dog. But typically we wait till house training and chewing is sort of sorted out. And if we put the bedding in, we don't just put it in for the first time and then leave for several hours. That's a good point. would watch and monitor and make sure it's truly going to be a safe scenario. Yeah. But don't feel bad about the puppy sleeping on a bare crate for now. No. They're totally fine.
And it won't be long. Believe me, it won't be long. Hopefully
our one border collie literally pushes his bed off to the side and then sleeps upside down without the bedding being. I don't even know why I put it in there sometimes.
I know. Isabel, $10 super sticker. Thank you for the super sticker. I see Lauren M has a question. Looks like an unusual one. Our puppy won't eat out of her bowl, only from her hands or off of the floor. We've tried all different bowls, mixing with pumpkin, feeding toys, etc. So that's a pretty unique challenge. I'm wondering off the top of my head what the material of the bowl might be. Because it won't be the shape of the vessel that the problem is. I might try a different material. Like if we have metal bowls for some of our dogs, and we also have a couple of plastic bowls, and so we'll
she said she's tried different bowls.
Yeah. So beyond that, do you have anything that pops into your mind other than one thing I might try? Sorry to interrupt. One thing I might try is hand feeding over the bowl, and then literally move that transition down into the bowl, just really slowly making your dog
hold your hand in the bowl.
Yeah, exactly. But that's a pretty unique situation. But it's an easy one to fix it with a little bit of being creative, I think.
Yeah, I actually have seen this before for a couple different reasons. But one of the most common reasons I find is at some point the bowl scared the puppy. Yeah. One of the dogs that I'm thinking of, the bowl hit the crate door or something like that.
Or their tags would have hit the side of the thing.
And it made a bit of a noise, and the puppy was a bit sound sensitive, and then the puppy was like, no, that thing's scary. So we did a couple things actually what you suggested. I had them sprinkle the food kind of around the bowl, so the puppy had to go in, and initially the puppy would literally stretch and because she wanted the food so bad, but then she'd be like, oh, there's that scary thing.
Their neck gets longer.
Yep. And we would just sort of move slowly. And then we did what Ken said about having it in the hand and then putting the hand inside the bowl. That also was really helpful as well. But sometimes there's whatever reason. But it's not typically something that is long-lived, especially too if you stop feeding out of your hand and, start insisting that they eat from the bowl or either near the bowl, then you will see that the puppy starts to get over it a little bit. But you have to sort of figure out why.
One of the big challenges, and we see this a lot. I see this a lot in the YouTube comments where someone said, well, I wish you'd use a dog that won't stop pulling in one of your walking videos. And one of the biggest challenges,
That's
guys...
literally all we do.
Well, but I think I think these guys might have a higher expectation of a pulling dog, or lower expectations of a pulling dog. Yeah. Mike with the super sticker. Thanks for the super sticker, Mike.
Thank you.
We need to talk a little bit about overfacing your dog with challenges. Yeah. When it's appropriate to start adding these specific challenges to your dog. The reason you won't see a dog that absolutely pulls like a truck in one of our leash walking videos is because that's not what that dog needs at that point in time. You need to teach that dog that they need to listen a little bit, whether it's in a stationary position or whatever the skill is. You need to figure out how to make them successful. one of the, I don't know if you're going to jump on this.
Well, I was just sort of thinking that, like, one of the reasons why we get success very quickly in some of the videos that we do, especially when it's dogs that aren't ours. We've posted a couple of videos lately, if you're watching our channel, with a black lab named Hank, and we actually work with him as a baby puppy as well. And he's a great dog, but he's big and powerful and busy and strong, and but he's done very well in a lot of the videos that we've had because we set him up to be successful. We're before we go out to train him, we think about, okay, what food do we have? What leash do we have? What equipment is he wearing? Where are we going to train him? What does the scenario look like? What's the distraction level like? And so we make sure that there's great scenario so that when we start out, it's not perfect, but it's easy to achieve success because all of the things are set up to be successful. We're not going to take him to his crazy spot for the very first time and just let him fail. A lot of it's built on success, and that's literally the core of our dog training methods here at McCann's, is to build on success, and then if you run into a jam, give you tools on how to fix it, but you're not going to keep practicing something that's not working. You need to learn how to adapt certain things, whether it's distance, whether it's duration, whether it's the level of distraction, whatever it is, so that you can find that happy spot where you can start building.
Yeah, good. Good.
Stop talking.
When you're focused, I'm just thinking about all the things that I need to keep the stream running.
Okay.
When we're talking about some of the challenges that you're giving to your dog, I want you to think about the 3 Ds. In any situation, you can start to challenge them with one of the 3 Ds, and that's distance, duration, and distraction. And whether that's walking on leash, maybe the distance is you're going to walk 20 more steps than you did last time. Maybe the duration, I'm going to walk for another 25 seconds, 30 seconds, rewarding them. Or the level of distraction. Maybe we're going to walk, closer to the park. Or maybe we're going to walk, to some place that they love to go where he usually pulls, but I'm going to stay a little bit farther away. As you adjust the distance, the duration, and the distraction, it's going to make it easier for your dog. But you can only change one of those things at a time. You don't want to make for like a stay, let's say, because it's a very easy to visualize. You don't want to all of a sudden be 20 feet away from your dog, which they've never done before, and roll a ball. It's not fair. And you're not going to stay away for 15 or 20 minutes, at that 20 feet because it's brand new. One thing at a time to make it just a little bit easier. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is overfacing their dog with way too many challenges. You need to have a solid foundation. And I want you to think about what is my dog really capable of? And how can I make it just a little bit harder? Because that's how you're going to get success. That's how you're going to train faster. That's how they're going to learn faster, is by just increasing that challenge a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
A few super chats came in here, and I want to get to those. I think Coco might have been the first.
Yep.
Our 10-month-old dog is super timid and might have anxiety. He's not aggressive towards us, but he changes when we take him to the vet, and we cannot be in the same room. What can we do to change his behavior? So it's pretty hard for us to answer. I don't like answering behavioral questions like this. We can talk a little bit about confidence building and maybe handling and stuff like that, but I worry a little bit because you'll see that we don't do behavioral stuff on the channel because every single dog is a little bit different. And I don't want you to, take something that might work for another dog, especially when it's a sensitive issue like the behavioral issue, and use it for your dog and it's just not right for them. Yeah,
we need to see and know more about the dog before we give you advice, because there's certain things that are going to work for certain situations, and then, certain things that are not the right thing, and we know the answers, but we don't want to steer you in the wrong direction. So we'll give you some general things that will probably help. It sucks that we can't go into the vets right now with COVID, and that they have to take the dogs in. And for dogs who are a little bit anxious and unsure about people that they don't know, it's a really, really tough time. And I do feel for you. I know a lot of dogs that are like that, and it's a hard scenario. So it's not fun. What I would suggest that you do, though, is try to make sure that you've really worked a lot on teaching the puppy or the dog that being held or their ears looked at or their paws looked at or
Yeah.
being restrained is a really positive thing by practicing that a lot with your dog and rewarding so that you're conditioning your dog and you know, it's you and not another person, so it might be easier because the dog's more comfortable with you. But the more you can practice it to teach the dog to be accustomed to that, the better. What I find a lot of people do is they just sort of like pet the dog and feed the dog, and that's not what you need to do to prepare them for a vet. You need to hold the ear, you need to restrain the dog, because these are things that happen at the vet, and we want the dog to, you know, feel that and be like, oh, I've done this before and I've been rewarded, and they can get comfortable with that. And you know, the next step, should you feel it's safe, it would be to have somebody that your dog knows a little bit less than you to do some of it as well. But again, I'm apprehensive to say that because I certainly don't want to put somebody in a scenario where they're going to get bit. But anyways, I would start with the handling and the conditioning first, so that, you know, there's some familiar parts to what may happen to the dog at the vet.
Okay, I see it. Dan, the moderator man, is all over this. I saw him drop a link in the chat talking about handling.
Yeah.
And there's a great video in there that will be quite helpful for you. I also saw instructor Lexi drop a link to do some Zoom privates. That might be you know, something that's good for those for you, Coco. I saw Cheryl dropped a super chat, and let's see here. I can't find it.
It's a question about a shepherd.
Okay.
There you go.
Oh no, right here. Oh,
No,
Isabel.
No, this one came in first.
Okay. Isabel, when I take my 20-week-old German Shepherd puppy to use the bathroom outside, she pees before we get out of the building in the lobby. How can I stop her? This will happen inside a house too, or a home, or you know, it doesn't really matter where what the location is. Isabel, you're not alone. This can happen. Couple things. Number one, you might need to start being a little bit more proactive. You might need to start going out a little bit sooner.
Yeah.
The other thing is,
usually that means that you're waiting a little bit too long.
Yeah, because your puppy just can't hold it. 20 weeks, you should have a solid understanding of house training or whatever. But the other thing is, dogs should be on a leash, and don't waste any time. If your puppy or your young dog finds the spot, you know, there's a spot. They're great big stones. We have these. They're big. They're really cool looking stones outside of our obedience building in front of our agility arena, and dogs pee on them constantly. So it wouldn't be uncommon for another dog to have peed in that location, and it's just nearly irresistible for your puppy. So you need to make sure that you don't waste any time. You have your dog on leash, and you head straight outside. Avoid, hitting the brakes anywhere. Avoid any situation where you're like, oh, you see your neighbor, and your puppy gets a chance to make a mistake. You need to help them to be successful. So being a little bit more proactive and not wasting any time getting outside so that they don't have any little detours along the way.
Lex is just drawing our attention here. I think Dee SC asked a question but didn't put it with a super chat, so Lexi's copy and pasted it there. See it?
Okay. Yep. I'll see if I can grab it here. Maybe you can start answering it.
She says, should a multi-poo be on a leash at all times? I'm in a small 3-room apartment plus a bathroom. Yes, Dee Dee, I would definitely suggest, even though you're in a small place, to still have the puppy on a leash or a line. I recognize that you probably can't get very far before you can catch up to the puppy, but it's not about being able to stop the puppy and catch them if they're peeing on the carpet or, grabbed a tea towel or jumping and biting at you. We don't want to be grabbing the actual puppy and causing the puppy to be worried or even become more playful and nipping and biting at us. The leash is a way for us to immobilize the puppy in a really calm but assertive manner so that we're not getting into a big wrestling match. I know you only have a little tiny multi-poo and it's probably very small, but we still treat it the exact same way. We're not going to allow the puppy to learn to jump up and nip at us, even though they're really small. That leash is just an easy way to get the dog calm. So, I would often, when we have the dogs in our house, we don't give them the free range to our main floor. If we're in the kitchen, we will put baby gates up on the doors so the dogs can't get out, and they're just in the kitchen with us. And in the kitchen, they'll be dragging their house line so that we have a way to get control of the dog without actually grabbing the puppy. Don't want to scare them, like I said before, and I don't want to provoke more excitement, which sometimes leads to more nipping and biting or whatever the issue may be.
Cheryl Hare dropping the super chat saying, we have having problems with separation anxiety. How do we get our toller used to being alone?
Again, hard one to answer without knowing more about the scenario because they can be like this for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
Number one, make sure that your most common thing is a lot of times when we're getting separation anxiety, the dog is either not being crated, or when they are being crated, it's when the person's going to sleep or when they're leaving the puppy. And so the puppy starts to associate going in that box with, their humans leaving. And that's a pretty upsetting thing. So I would suggest if you are using the crate to make sure that you are using it in the same room that you're in while you're home so that the puppy's not associating you leaving. Some puppies do really well when the crate is in the same room as you and they can just learn to be calm even though you're there. You can also work on just, putting it in a place where like it's a high traffic area. In our house, we have it in the kitchen, which we spend a lot of time in our kitchen, but we're in and out and in and out. So the puppy gets used to, from the beginning, having us be in the room and then maybe leaving and going to the bathroom or running upstairs or going to the living room and then coming back in the kitchen. So the puppy sort of gets used to seeing that. The other thing you might try to do is make sure that if you're going to leave and your puppy's doing a lot of whining or stressing, be careful that you're not coming back and going, it's okay,
right.
Or reinforcing the puppy.
Yeah.
Wait till the puppy's quiet, then come back. So the puppy learns that quiet, relaxed behavior actually, in fact, brings you back from there. So hopefully a couple points there to get you started.
I was a little bit focused on this, but did you mention when you come home, like if you come home after a work day or if you come home after
don't make a big deal of them? No, I didn't.
Yeah, just completely ignore them. Just completely ignore them unless you're working on house training or something like that and you have to get them outside. But literally come back in your house, come back into that room, pay no attention to them for a couple of minutes. And once their level of anxiety about getting out of the crate goes down a little bit, then you can release them. Then it's not this pattern of like, oh, they're home. It's number one playtime. I'll get to eat. And I can't wait until they open the door, because I can accidentally create this sort of positive feedback cycle where the only time your dog is comfortable is when they're let out of their crate, when they're out of their crate. So building some value by being in their crate, it also means not being that speedy about letting them out when you come back, and let them settle back in. There's been a lot of excitement. You come home, let them settle back in before you let them out. It can be really, really helpful. We were talking about a few different breeds, and one of the things that drives me up the wall is people who say something like, "Oh, well, I mean, it's a blue tick, so you can't teach them to walk on a leash," or
it's a husky. It won't come when it's called.
Or it won't stop pulling. Believe me, guys. We train more than 500 dogs a week in the training facility. A little bit fewer right now because we have COVID rules, but and all of the breeds have come through. I can't think of one specific breed where I think like, we've never seen one of those dogs. But everyone comes in thinking like, boy, I don't think there's any way we're going to be successful with this dog. I was that person. I was the person who thought, oh, it's a lab. I'll never be able to teach her to not to stop chewing on stuff. I can tell you, having seen it thousands upon thousands of times as an instructor, it is. You need to have higher expectations of your dog. The moment I started to realize, like, wow, we're making progress here as a handler, as a student, when I started to realize we're making progress here, my entire world changed and my training changed, and I started to have higher expectations of my dog. You want to continue on with that?
Yeah. So, there's lots of times where people's, mistake in their dog training is that they make excuses like dog breed, or a lot of people say, oh, it's his age. He's just a puppy. He shouldn't, he shouldn't have to know that. Where like lots of puppies can learn to do really great things. Or my favorite one recently is blaming the dog's poor behavior on other family members. Oh, he doesn't do that because my husband lets him do this all the time, or my wife lets him do this all the time. And, stop making excuses. You got to roll up your sleeves and you got to train the dog. Every single dog is capable of learning. It's just the human that holds them back. And so, we always say in our training that we should be like McCann owner trainers or people trainers, because we really believe that our job as professional dog trainers is to teach you how to train your dog. You could send Ken and I your dog, and we could train them easily, send them back to you, no problem. However, your dog is going to listen to us. It's not necessarily going to listen to you. And you learn with the dog. You spend time with the dog. And also, you would miss out on all of that bonding and like
it's so good. That's the best
so
part.
good for your relationship with your dog to do the training yourself. So you really need to learn about expectations and all of the things that we've been talking to you tonight, because that makes such a difference, being able to problem solve and work through things yourself. So yeah, don't let excuses be the reason that it kind of holds you back. You just have to be patient and do the work. It's hard work, dog training. I'm not sure if you realize that, but it's a lot of effort and time and commitment, but we always look at it like the time and work that you put in for the first year or two of your dog's training means that you get to enjoy the most wonderful, lovely family member for like later on in life. Like, I don't even remember some of the puppy stuff of my older dogs now because they're just so wonderful to spend time with. But if I think back, I went through all of the nipping and house training and chewing and all those things with
all the stuff that sucks, and you're like, oh,
single dog. Yeah, but you just forget about it because it's done in the past. You work through it, and then you just enjoy the loveliness.
Now, I need to say, Matt H dropped a $9.99 super chat. Didn't add a comment. Dropped another $9.99 super chat.
My
Matt.
gosh. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you very much for the super chat. So we need to talk about this question. 4-month-old Cavapoo is hit or miss with potty training. Sometimes she goes to the door and has accidents. I'm not crate training as I am working from home. Any tips?
Start crate training. Would be the first one. So it doesn't really matter if you're working from home.
And it doesn't have to specifically be a crate. You know, it can be like a
It is best if it's a crate, though.
It's easier if it's a crate.
But,
like a denning
because, you know, you can't stay home all of the time. You need to sleep. You need to go out sometimes. So the crate's going to be the safest thing for you to do, and it's going to stop the rehearsal of house training problems. The other thing you want to be careful of is if she's going to the door and having accidents, that probably means that she's trying to give you a cue to go outside, but then maybe you're missing it. And so she might start trying other things if she feels that going to the door isn't working. So make sure that you're watching very, very closely. We have found in my last home, I did teach my youngest to go to the door when she had to go outside. And I actually since have changed my methods because there was lots of times she went to the door and I didn't know she was there based on kind of how my house was set up. So we now actually work on teaching the puppies to come to us when they have to go outside, so that if they happen to be there near the door and I'm not, they'll kind of come over. And when we moved, our little poodle is the one that learned to go to the door initially. And now she's really good. She goes to the door and then you hear doot, 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 and she walks into the room and then doot, 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 to the door. And she just kind of goes back and forth. And when the pacing starts, we're like, hey, she's got to go outside. So that's been really, really helpful. But I would definitely suggest implementing the crate training and do it early before the puppy gets too much older, because it's just so much easier. But that way you can get the house training under control. And that way, if you can't watch her, if you're busy or you're doing something, which happens, we have stuff to do, you know, she's in a safe place and that she's not rehearsing the house training process.
Yeah, Matt, the thing you really need to know is that if you can't see it, you can't fix it. You can't train something that's happened 10 seconds ago. It's just not reasonable for your dog. So you need to set yourself up in a situation. If that means that you're working from home and you can keep an eye on your dog 100% of the time, then you're gonna catch them in the act.
Yeah.
But if you can't, then you need to change something. And crate or limited space area is a really good way to do that. A couple other really good super chat questions. Team Denim. I like this channel name. Team Denim. What is the best type of crate for a puppy? Plastic or wire?
It's just personal preference. If you ask me, I would say plastic. What would you say?
Yeah, I'd say plastic. It's much cleaner. Wire has a lot more airflow.
Yeah, my dogs seem to like plastic better because it's very denning. And they really like that. But it's just personal preference. We have both. We have both wire crates and plastic crates. We have specific ones for the car that are a little bit higher qualities just for safety. And we mostly have plastic crates, but it's really just up to you. The nice thing about wire crates is that it has a little bit more airflow depending on where you're using it. And often they come with little dividers. So if you have a bigger breed dog, you can buy a big crate in the beginning, but then you can put a barricade in and then you can kind of size it as the puppy grows. With the plastic crates, it's not as easy to do that. It's possible. It's not as easy, but I personally really like the plastic crates. I find it keeps the house cleaner. You can vacuum it out pretty simply, but it really is just personal preference. But I vote plastic.
Okay, I would agree with you. From Lynn Swords. My puppy woke up from a nap and I took her out to pee. She wandered around and then came in and sat at my feet. Great. I brought her in.
It sounded like a rhyme, like a nursery rhyme.
My puppy woke up from a nap, so I took her out to pee. She wandered around and then came and sat at my feet. Oh, where's this going?
I don't know. I'm intrigued.
I brought her in and she peed on the rug. What do I do when this little thing?
No, she's snug as a bug.
Yes. I brought her in and she peed on the rug. How do I stop this? So, Lynn, this definitely speaks to kind of what we were just talking about. And I would say, from having a YouTube channel now, one of the most common things people say is that they took their puppy out, they peed or pooed or whatever, they brought them back in and they had another accident. And now talking...
She's taking her, she's not even going to the bathroom.
Right. That moment is the most important moment for your puppy's training. The same thing is if you take your puppy out, they pee outside, you bring them back in and they pee right on the floor. That moment is just as important as getting them outside, as having them outside to pee. Let's talk a little bit about negative verbal reprimand and how she can mark that moment so she has good timing.
Yeah, it can be difficult sometimes when they're outside. When you take her out, make sure she's on a leash and that you're just sort of standing still. And if she comes to sit on your feet, just kind of move away. Often what I'll do is just sort of move around and I'll just say like, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, in sort of like a methodical, like unexciting type of tone.
Can you guys imagine Kayl not being exciting?
I know, it's the one time that I'm not exciting. And then if the puppy's not going within a couple seconds, I will pick the puppy up, and typically when I bring the puppy back in, I'll put the puppy right in the crate so the puppy can't rehearse going to the bathroom. Or if I want to work through it, I will put the puppy down and I will watch them like a hawk, because typically puppies don't just walk and then all of a sudden they're peeing.
Right.
They will sniff. They sometimes will try and get away from you. They'll try to find like a little spot. And when I see those things starting to happen, I'll either A, get ready to scold them for peeing, or B, I'll say, oh, do you have to go outside? And then I'll take them outside again. But I think what happens is we take them outside, we think, oh, they didn't go, they must not have to. We take them back in, and now the puppy's not as stimulated, and they sort of go, oh gosh, I forgot, I have to pee. And then they go. So make sure when you bring her in that you're either putting her away or you're watching her very closely, so you can either A, re-instigate the outside thing based on her behavior, or you're ready to catch her in the act of going to the bathroom. And if you're able to do that a couple times, you should be on the right track again. But sometimes puppies are just easily excited and distracted outside. It's not uncommon at all for puppies to go outside and just like get distracted by what's going on, or they're cold, or like our poodle is horrible when it rains. When she goes outside, she's like, it's touching me, like she's just grossed out by it.
That's exactly the voice I have in my head.
Anyway, so we sort of like, come on, hurry up. And that's actually one of the reasons why we love that our dogs go to the bathroom on a command, so that they learn to go quickly, so that if it's gross weather outside or we're late or whatever, the puppy learns to go a little bit more reliably. But there's a couple things to get you started.
We've covered a lot of ground here, talking about the 5 most common mistakes that people make and how you can fix them. If you jumped in the stream a little bit late, I highly suggest you head back.
Go back to the beginning.
Go back to the part just after I got here, because I was late. So let's just completely ignore that. But there's some really important people that I need to thank for today's live stream. Number 1, Karen Aruda, Mary H, Vicky W, Alexandros Kritikos, Justin Small, Egypt Tiven, Liberty J, Grace Knobs, Isabel Tepos, Lauren M, Mike McLean, Coco, Isabel Tepos, Cheryl Hare, Dee CSC, Matt H twice, Team Denim, Lynn Swords, and I want to thank you for hanging out with us. I feel like we, as I mentioned, we talked a lot about some of the things that you can change in your dog training, and I highly suggest that you rewatch this if you feel like, oh man, it was a lot and moved quickly, because I know a lot of people say like, oh, you guys talk so fast. We have a lot of ground to cover, guys, and we tried to do it in an hour. This one was a little bit long, but I really want to make sure you make the most of it. The other thing too, though,
is that we have we do these live streams every other week. Many of you guys know that because you come and hang out with us every other week, and we love that.
Yeah.
But if you're having dog training issues, or you want a little bit more guidance with your particular dog at home, you also can either train with us online. We have 2 online classes currently, one for puppies under 6 months and one for dogs over 6 months, that work on sort of pertinent things.
Yeah, so our life skills is for dogs over 6 months. Puppy Essentials is for dogs under 6 months.
Yeah, so it's there's training videos, instructional sort of progressions on all kinds of exercises that I think you'll find find very important. But I think the best thing about them is that they're fully supported by our instructors. So you'll have access to ask questions to the instructors about your particular dog, and we can give you specific guidance. We also do really fun weekly things like having private Zoom calls. So instead of doing something big in public like this, we have more concentrated Zoom calls where we just, talk to you guys
you
themselves.
You'll see some of our students in the chat that are sort of mentioning.
Yeah. Anyways, we get to know you and your puppies quite well, and it's really a lot of fun. And you can start with that at any time to
from
get
all
going
over the world.
with your
Doesn't
dogs.
matter where you are.
Yeah, it's 24 hours. So if you live in England or Australia, we're in Canada, but we make sure that it's open and available to students from any place around the world. And then if you're local, we do have in-house classes or in-person classes in Flamborough, Ontario, as well. So yeah, there's lots of ways to get some more help with your dog.
A huge thank you to Dan. Lots of links looting. I saw him dropping links like crazy. Instructor Lexi, one of our instructors, one of our online training instructors as well. Super helpful here today. And maybe this is your first time here on the channel. If that is the case, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We publish new videos every week to help you to have a well-behaved four-legged family member. Melissa dropping the super sticker. Thank you very much. Fist bump. I hear you. Coming right back at you. And I guess that's about it, Kayl.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say?
No, I'm going to drop a few links in here because people are asking questions about how to find these things.
Well, I guess that's it. Or is it?
We do these live streams to educate you, but more importantly, to motivate you. You can have the dog that you've always wanted, but it's just going to take you a little bit of work.
I would know because I was just like you. Long before I became a dog trainer, I was a frustrated dog owner, but the skills that I learned at McCann's changed my life. Now we have hundreds of videos here on our YouTube channel to help you to have a well-behaved four-legged family member.
But if you want someone to guide you through the dog training process, then you should check out our Puppy Essentials program for puppies under 6 months. If your dog is over 6 months, then you could join our Life Skills program, and our instructors are going to help to make sure that everything goes as smoothly as possible in a really supportive environment.
Now, all of the knowledge about dog training in the world won't help you to be successful unless you get up and you start training. The real question is, what are you going to train next?
Happy training.